Because today I am releasing the third PopCross Studios coloring book, all about fantasy beasts, which of course includes some more dragons, I thought it'd be fun to go back to an old PopCross Studios dragons topic, and I actually put it up as a vote for my subscribers. The majority of people chose Ben 10, and I'm super excited to do another of these. Also, if you're not subscribed and you want to make sure to have a say the next time I put up a vote, you might want to subscribe. But for now, let's get into Ben 10 dragons, a few of which are aliens I've never worked with before. So let's go!
Hit like if you want, subscribe if you feel like, but either way, enjoy the show.
I went looking for a possible new summon to add to my roster of dragon and creature allies, and learned of a beast that I don't think I'd ever have any hope of commanding. A group I've worked alongside many times now, the Slayers of Cursed Predators, have held many ferocious beasts captive in their Arctic base, but one of the most vicious and lethal is the Chimeran Vilgaxor. Often chimeras are depicted as draconic creatures with multiple heads, often varying in shape even within the same creature's body. Most commonly known is the goat-snake-lion fusion. The Chimeran Vilgaxor does not exactly fit into this common chimera mold, but it does seem to be a beast like a fusion of a dragon and the eldritch horror, known of and depicted in legends in multiple worlds, Cthulhu. Some even claim the tales in my world of Cthulhu were stemmed from this very beast. If the Vilgaxor does come from a full species like itself, these have been lost to time in my world, as it appears to be the last of its kind, which I believe my realm is better off for. This monstrosity has power and speed nearly on par with that of a superior sky dragon, but with none of that creature's inherent morality. This beast also has the ability to transform parts of its body, as its physiology seems to be made up of multiple powerful strands of tentacles. It can reshape its wings, give itself additional arms, and combine its many tails into one more powerful limb. Its flame breath is also very unique. Only 2 creatures known to my world, as far as I'm aware, have this same sort of beam-like flame breath. It can shoot a condensed beam of crimson fire that can bend and turn, actively chasing down whatever target it seeks, until it finds its mark. While the Slayers have determined that it can at least be injured through intense enough surges of electricity, and its flesh is not entirely impenetrable, I am certainly glad that this creature is currently in their custody. As much as its power would be useful to me, I do not intend to even try bonding with this creature as a draconic ally. Now, I said this in one of the community posts before this episode came out, but it's wild that I'd never done a drawing of Vilgax before when I've done so many Ben 10 episodes on this channel. I mean, I guess I've only done one Ben 10 villain before. I did Kevin 11 as a demon in my Ben 10 Ben 10 as a demon story episode, which, for people that don't know, actually laid the groundwork for my recent book that came out, Fear of the Demon Hunters, because the main MacGuffin used in that story is the Demonatrix. But anyway, so I was super excited to work with Vilgax, but on top of that, I was particularly excited because it meant I was going to get to do another sort of Cthulhu-inspired creature, something with tentacles coming out from around its face. And the last time I did that was in episode 7 of the Trismegistus Academy, and the sort of Cthulhu-type creature I did in that is one of my favorite drawings, or at least creature designs, that I've done this year. And while doing all the tentacles can be a bit time-consuming, I knew that it was going to pay off. And I also like that this doesn't just look like a copy of that. I didn't want to just do a Cthulhu-style face. I wanted it to be a mix between Cthulhu and a dragon, to have a sort of dragon snout to it. And I think the mesh of those things works really well here. I'm happy with all of the drawings from this episode, but this has definitely got to be my favorite. So let's take a look at the finished result. As I was considering more possibilities for creature companions, I came across old incomplete notes I'd scribed on a cycloptic dragon called the Fibarian Conductagon. If the Chimeran Vilgaxor ever did escape, considering its slight vulnerability to electricity, one of these beasts would certainly be useful to have on hand. The Conductagons are some of the most conductive electrical dragons my realm has to offer. Not only can they absorb electricity from the air around them, they can absorb electrical energy directly from the bodies of any creature around them. They can even convert various forms of energy into electricity to use at their whims. If a fire-breathing dragon, say, were to expel a flame at a Fibarian, the beast would very likely drink in the flame and direct it back at its foe as a beam of lightning. If faced with another electric dragon, these creatures can even redirect electricity around them without coming into contact with it. So, while they could simply absorb any electrical surges aimed their way, they wouldn't even need to allow it to reach them in order to alter its course back at its foe or elsewhere. Going further beyond the skill set of many electric dragons from my world, when these dragons fly into particularly conductive storm clouds, they can essentially teleport through them, increasing their already impressive speed to essentially traverse instantaneously. It has not yet been documented exactly how the creature does this. Some believe its entire body is able to transform into an electrical state and move through these clouds at light speed, while others believe it is simply able to connect to the conductivity of the cloud and transport itself magically to any point that conductivity extends to. Either way, it can mean these creatures are nearly impossible to catch when there's a storm brewing for their use nearby. Now, I really love doing electric creatures and characters because I end up often adding some kind of electrical energy around the character's hands or head or something like that, and that can be an easy way to add some extra energy and oomph to a piece. And near the end of this drawing, I do go in to add some, and I just end up taking it out. This one was looking really clean and crisp. I loved how the head turned out. I loved the pose, and the electricity that I tried adding just made it feel like it was busying it up too much. I didn't really feel like it was adding anything to the piece, it was more taking away. Now, I just tried adding it to its head. Maybe I could have put some sparks in and around its tail, but I also thought that might, because that's a very dynamic element to add, that might just draw people's eye too much to the tail when that's not really the focal point. It's more so its head and its arm coming forward. So I threw in the electricity, immediately took it out, just kind of looked at the piece for a moment, and I was like, I'm really happy with this. I don't think it needs the electricity in there. I think what works well about this piece is I didn't try to get too fancy with any elements of it. I just did a pretty straight, direct adaptation. Feedback, exactly how I think it would look as a dragon. And so far, I'm happily still standing by that decision, even if it doesn't communicate visually that this character is an electric-related character. But I hope you all like that call, and let's take a look at the final result. Wow, Tayrun, well, the stuff you was just talking about really is the way you said it was, isn't it? I'm not sure I follow, Mr. Sharp. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I was taking a nap just before I got dragged here into the non-canonical advertising realm, so what is we talking about today again? I imagine our focus is intended to be on the new Fantasy Beasts coloring book. It is the third of the PopCross coloring books and has many dragons and beasts akin to what people are listening to me chronicle in the lore of this video. Right. I mean, you'd think Pop would want us talking about the Dragons coloring book, since that one actually has Ben 10 inspired dragons in it, but I guess the Fantasy Beasts coloring book is the new one. And in fact, this book does have a Ben 10 inspired fantasy beast in it, along with a greater variety of types of creatures than the Dragon book had. Right. Yeah, okay, alright, you know what, I'm actually coming around to this, my smelling salt is kicking in, this thing is actually pretty cool looking. I mean, it ain't no armor coloring book that folks should still pester Pop about making, but yeah, it is pretty good. And if anyone would like to purchase it or other coloring books and novels, they can find them on the PopCross Amazon bookstore, linked in the description. Good stuff, now get back to the lore tales or whatever you was doing, because I'm gonna go back to my nap. Looking back at my entry on the Fibarian led me to looking into another dragon I'd studied around that same time, the Drilling Armorot. This burly tank of a beast is a wyvern that you'd rightly assume by looking at it does not spend much time in the skies. It does have wings, but cannot fly great distances on them. More commonly, it will glide on them after exploding out of the earth. Armorots will generally keep their wings folded and use their immensely powerful and durable claws to dig through dirt, gravel, and even solid stone to burrow into the ground and travel through the earth. They can sense vibrations above them and will use this to sneak up on prey from beneath. They will travel far enough underground to ensure they do not cause tremors above until they are directly beneath their prey. Then, as quickly as they can, they will drill upwards, explode from the ground beneath their prey, and snatch them up for a meal. If their prey is capable of flight and manages to get airborne, the drilling Armorots will burst up from the earth at a fast enough speed to become airborne. They'll then extend their wings and try to use the momentum from their burst to fly after their prey and snag them for a meal still. Occasionally this does work out, but many other airborne creatures are faster than these ones once in the skies. Standing at 20 feet tall, these creatures are far from the largest dragons I've chronicled, but their incredibly durable armor adds enough heft to them that they'd be similar in weight to the average dragon 3 times their size. Ultimately, one of these creatures would be most worth considering turning into one of my summons if I was in dire need of a beast with incredible defensive capabilities. An intriguing idea, but not one I feel compelled to actively leap on at the moment. Now for this episode, I wanted to mainly focus on Ben 10 aliens that I've never drawn on the channel before. Feedback, I had drawn once before in Ben 10 Aliens Venomized, but I don't think that episode even had lore, and then all 3 of the other aliens that I work with today I'd never drawn before, and I pulled all of them from suggestions in the comments. Armadrillo was one that I've considered using multiple times because I really like the design, but I'm glad I waited around to use it in a dragon episode because I really like how this one turns out. The one negative note I would put on this one is, whereas with the feedback dragon, I think the simplicity kind of worked. This one, I keep it simple, and I think part of that works nicely because I gave it a nice dynamic pose jumping up out of the ground, so there's not much busyness in the design distracting from the fact that there's a bit of extra busyness from the movement of the piece. But I might have gone a little bit too simple. Maybe I could have added a little bit more color variety in there, maybe even up the contrast a bit, I'm not sure. But again, overall I'm very happy with how this piece turned out, and I like that it's a different pose from some of the other dragons I've done. I mean, in a sense, it's kind of a similar pose to the Vilgax dragon, where the arms are positioned and stuff, but this dragon is doing something different from what I have dragons doing in a lot of my drawings. Obviously, there's going to be repetition in episodes because I've done so many dragon episodes, but I think this one, having him actually burst up out of the ground, is a nice change of pace from other pieces. So yeah, I probably could have added a little bit more complexity to the design, but overall I'm very happy with this one too. Of the 4 beasts I reflected on in this session, the one I'd most actively consider turning into a summon would be the nuclear Automatagon. There are so few of these creatures left in the world that when I was able to observe one, I hardly believed what I was seeing. Parts of these dragons' bodies are translucent, allowing an observer to see a sort of bubbling energetic mass that surges through them. From what I've heard in tales from older chroniclers, if one of these creatures is killed, all those nearby must vacate a 3-mile radius around it for a period of at least a month, as its blood and interior tissue is incredibly toxic. Thankfully, while they are alive, this toxicity is well contained inside them, and is only externalized as targeted beams at the dragon's prey or foes. Since these creatures are generally not hostile towards humans, unless provoked, this means there are very few accounts of the toxicity of these creatures harming civilians of the villages near where one may reside. Still, it is said that these creatures are incredibly overconfident. While they are very durable, strong, fast, and capable of energy breath attacks beyond that of most dragons, they were known to challenge beasts much more powerful than themselves on a whim, even if a creature was simply flying through or above their territory. The Slayers of Cursed Predators once had a dragon of this species in their containment, and they tested the durability of its flesh against some of the more toxic dragons of my realm, such as the monolithic Shin Gods. Even that beast's incredibly radioactive blood did nothing to harm or weaken an Automatagon's hide. Because of this, I can just imagine a certain armor-crafting ally of mine foaming at the mouth at the idea of getting her hands on part of this creature's plating, but considering they are endangered, I don't think I'll be directing her to where she can find one. These dragons are also known for having a very strange call. Having now heard it myself, I'd describe it as a boisterous laugh that is used as a show of intimidation to the creature's opponents. While these dragons are surely incredibly powerful, their own aggressive overconfidence may very well have been the thing that led them to the brink of extinction, though I am pleased to have experienced firsthand that my world has not seen the last of them yet. Now, switching to Atomix for this episode was a very last-minute decision. Originally, I was going to do blocks. Both of those aliens had been recommended by people in the comments, But the thing is, my idea for blocks was to do a very stony, grounded Drake kind of dragon without wings, and I realized it was going to look very similar to my Dragon of the Thing from my Fantastic Four Dragons episode earlier this year, which I think is a very good episode. You might want to check it out if you haven't seen it. But anyway, I realized design-wise I would be repeating myself too much, so I was like, okay, let's switch this up. Went to the comments, saw Atomix recommended a couple times, and I was just like, alright, we're doing that instead. And I didn't really know much about this alien. I think he pops up in Omniverse for the first time, and I didn't watch Omniverse growing up. But he was a fun, weird, kind of different one to work with. And you saw earlier in the drawing, I had his head kind of posed lower, like he was prowling, and I really liked the look of that for a dragon in general, but realized it didn't work well for this character. He's not really a prowling, lurking kind of alien. As was said in the lore, he's more of a confident, boisterous, upstanding kind of character, so I switched his head to the upward position. Still doesn't quite convey the confidence that I think the character has in his personality, but I think it definitely works better than what I was doing. Not my favorite of the episode, but I'd say it's definitely unique as far as my dragon designs go. So I hope you all like the result.
I'd love to know if I did another Ben 10 sequel to one of my older Ben 10 videos, which one would people want to see most? Or if there's something new you'd like to see me do with Ben 10 aliens, drop that in the comments as well. If you enjoyed this and you haven't seen the old Ben 10 Dragons episodes, or it's just been a while, you might want to go back to the last one. I'll have it linked in the cards and description and stuff. But besides that, that's all for today, except of course for ending this video on some kind of positive or inspiring note, and the thought I want to leave people with today is a quote I read this week that I really like and resonated with me. The conscious person uses the world as a mirror to reflect inward and master themselves. The unconscious person attacks the mirror and lashes outwards. Essentially to say, when something outside you triggers a very negative, angry, upset response, instead of lashing out at other people, that is a perfect opportunity to look inward and ask yourself, why did that trigger me so much? And figure out what inside you can heal from so that that doesn't happen again. You're never going to be able to control everything that happens outside you, but you can master your own internal responses. I hope that's inspiring. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Monday.